The story starts somewhere in an alleyway of a large city, where a man in a red shirt is running away from someone in fear, not realizing why this is happening to him. He stops suddenly, trying to hear if someone's coming after him, but it's all quiet. He thinks he's escaped and relaxes. Out of nowhere, a stranger shows up behind him and holds a knife to his throat. The person chasing him moved so silently, he didn't hear a thing. Feeling the dagger, the man in the red shirt pleads to the stranger to wait, and promises to give all the money he has. The murderer just says, "Die," and without caring, slides the blade across the guy's throat. The morning after, Aragi Kai, a 17-year-old high school student, is walking towards his school with a sleepy demeanor. He regrets showing up here right after his night job. He does not like showing up so early. Just then he thinks about his unexpected occupation as an assassin. As he enters, most of his classmates have already gathered, and are engaged in lively conversations. Aragi strolls to his desk. Midu Shuji, student number 35, the affable class president and star of the soccer club, greets him warmly. In contrast, he responds with cold indifference and soon drifts into slumber, resting his head on the table. His rude attitude irritates Nagase Rina, student number 22, a fashionable gyro who stands out from the rest of the girls in class. She angrily tells Shuji, there's no need for him to greet people like Aragi. Shuji tries to calm her down with a smiling face and says, "Come on, he's my classmate too. I bet he's tired, that's why." She adds, "He's still being rude." Suddenly, a sturdy guy who looks like a bully appears in the doorway. Arashi Shunsuke is student number 1, and the leader of a local notorious delinquent gang. As he enters, his friends warmly welcome him. He moves forward and looks disdainfully at Shuji and then at Aragi, who is sleeping at the farthest corner of the room. Walking over to his sleeping classmate, he tries to wake him by angrily shouting that it must be nice to sleep soundly. But Aragi ignores him, prompting Arashi to threaten trouble if he continues sleeping. He then attempts to grab the sleepy boy by the scruff of the neck, but he finds his arm grabbed instead. Aragi drowsily asks him what he wants. It enrages him, and he shouts at Aragi to let him go, who mockingly apologizes before abruptly letting go, leaving Arashi burning in rage and needing his aching wrist. Just then a girl intervenes and asks them to be quiet. Kanzaki Rin, student number 8, a beautiful woman talented in both martial arts and literature, the cool and aloof top beauty of the school. As the bell rings, Aragi falls into slumber again. When he wakes up, he notices something strange under Midwa's feet, a sparkling blue light. It sparked a panic among the students. Everyone is shockingly wondering what is happening. A portal emitting blue light appeared in the auditorium, and confusion spread rapidly. There is no time to think. Midu advises everyone to leave, and he realizes that they won't make it in time. As the portal's light fades away, they all are lying on the ground unconsciously. Aragi asks himself, "Where am I?" He turns around to see what it is. It's a building made of stone and several large pillars to take cover. And there's only one exit. It's hard to believe, but it seems they were swallowed up by that white light. He ponders, did the whole class get hurled off somewhere? All the students wake up in confusion, trying to make sense of their surroundings after seeing a blinding white light. Midu, the head of the class, attempts to calm everyone down despite his own uncertainty about the situation. He advises them that first, they have to make sure that everyone is all right. Aragi ponders if Midu can keep the whole class from losing their composure. However, Arashi, who is known for being confrontational, disagrees, claiming it is a waste of time. He wants to see what is happening, so he asks 2 of his classmates to come with him and march toward the door, intending to leave. But Aragi interrupts, asking him to wait, mentioning the approaching footsteps from the other side of the door. He suspects there are 2 of them, a man and a woman. But the question is, will they be able to understand each other? The door opens, revealing an elderly cloaked man and a gray-haired woman. The girl, seemingly the more talkative one, addresses them. "Very impressive, dear hero candidates. It seems like you have already calmed down." Meanwhile, the whole class is glancing at them with their mouths opened wide and eyes popping out. They wonder if it's some kind of cosplay and it's the medieval knight and the princess. Then they focus on the word hero. While Aragi is noticing them, afar he thinks, the man has the physique of a sword user, and he has his guard up. This isn't some cosplay, that guy's strong. As for the woman, she has slight muscles, but she pretty much looks normal. She introduces herself saying, "It's a pleasure to meet you all, I'm Leonora, the Archbishop of the Holy Country de Garist. This is Gaius, he's a knight and my protector." Arashi bursts in anger, telling them he never heard of that country before. Are they messing with them? Leonora calmly replies to him by smiling that they are not, but she is sure that's how it seems for them. Midhu apologizes to the girl, telling her about their bewilderment about suddenly finding themselves there. He asks her to tell him what was going on. Leonora is of course here to explain what exactly happened. First, she explains the circumstances that they have been put in. She glances at the high school students, telling them that they have been summoned to a parallel world. They are the hope of mankind that can overthrow the Demon King. They are the candidates for heroes. While Midhu scratches the back of his head and says that the girl's story is hard to believe, Arashi, who is standing nearby, asks the stranger to stop talking about some incomprehensible nonsense. With an angry glance at the insolent boy, the elderly knight advises him to choose his expressions, as he is facing the saint of this country. In turn, a scornful Arashi tells the old man to shut up and then threatens to kill him if he continues to show off. "You seem to understand your place only after you know pain," Nightingale says, gripping the hilt of his sword while glaring at him. But when Leonora asks him to stop, the knight explains that even if the kid didn't understand much, it would be better if he broke their fangs. Just then, Arisha shouts angrily, "All right then, die, old man!" running towards Gaius. Aragi realizes that this guy is brave enough to challenge the man with the sword. Arashi is used to fighting against opponents with weapons. The key is to dodge the first blow and strike from below. He finds it even more comfortable to fight with his bare hands. But in the next second, as the old man pulls the blade from its sheath, he realizes how badly he has been wrong. He doesn't even notice the movement of the sword, but his forehead is already wounded and bleeding. That's when Gaius explains that he has only intentionally cut his hair, but he will not hold back next time. Leonora tells her loyal knight that this is enough, after which she asks him to put his sword away. Leonora begins to say, looking at the guests of this world, "I apologize for the rude welcome, we never meant you any harm. The reason why you are in this world, I will explain to you now, right down to the smallest detail. So first of all, please observe silence." Standing aside, a surprised Nashami asks the Archbishop about the radiant light. The gray-haired woman explains that it is the power of the system, a miraculous ability granted to her by the god de Garist. This power momentarily establishes a new law in the world and, as Leonora suggests, is better known to the inhabitants of the other world as magic. Aragi, hiding behind the pillar, realizes from her words that this girl is familiar with the culture of the other world. And maybe this is not their first time to summon people from other worlds. Meanwhile, the Archbishop had already moved towards the class leader Shuji. "This power is the primary reason you are here," she explained, touching his head with her hand. In that same instant, the boy sensed an abrupt freezing in his veins, feeling his entire being transform. Shielding her face from the sudden, blinding light that erupted in her classmates' palms, Nashami observes Shuji's hand sparkling. Simultaneously, the radiance transforms into a sword. The Archbishop clarifies that the miraculous power can awaken innate abilities of divine protection in hero candidates, randomly endowing them with unique abilities that can't be altered. She realizes the self-serving nature of her request for summoning them but appeals to the teenagers to lend their strength to the country. However, the class leader Shuji responds that even with these blessings, ordinary high school students wouldn't inherently become proficient fighters. With a bowed head, the gray-haired girl acknowledges that visitors to their world would need extensive training. Their country vows to take full responsibility for the candidates' care and preparation. Upon hearing her, Midhu swiftly agrees without hesitation. "Listen up, everyone! I know you are scared, but for our survival, We need protection and knowledge above all else. Also, I'm sure this divine protection will come in handy when we're in trouble. Maybe we should hear them out for now. Moved by Mida's words, all the classmates recognized this as their sole resort and promptly consented. Upon learning of their decision, Leonora smiles and expresses gratitude to the children. She then requests their permission to bestow upon them God's blessing. Hashimoto receives the blessing of telekinesis. The blessing of the explosion went to Arashi. Following them, the rest of the class receives their abilities as well. Did everyone get their gift? She asks awkwardly, noticing that the children have already started having fun with their new superpowers. Stepping out from behind the pillar, Aragi Kai raises his hand and says that he still hasn't received his blessing. When the guy comes up to Leonora, the girl apologizes to him and says that she hasn't noticed him. After these words, she puts her hand on the boy's shoulder. At the same moment, Aragi feels that something is wrong with his vision. As he looks at the Archbishop standing before him, he sees the system window in front of her face. This girl's name is Leonora Diagris, and she is 18 years old. It also states that her attack is equal to a rank defense and dexterity to D. Physical strength only at level E. But as for magic power, it is at its highest rank of S. On top of all this, the boy sees Leonora's skills and their levels. While he tries to figure out what has happened to his vision, the Archbishop points out the change in his eye color and explains that apparently, he has received the divine protection judgment. This is a great rarity. The boy looks at her with a puzzled look and asks what it means. She tells him that it can be used to find out details about the strength and skills of the target. Realizing the essence of his newfound power, he decides to try something. He looks at his palm and activates the blessing. The system immediately pops up a statistics window in front of his eyes. Aragi Kai, 17 years old. Attack at level B, defense at level F, dexterity at level B, physical strength at C, magical strength at the lowest E. Additionally, he possesses several useful skills boosted to level 5, including killing technique, short sword wielding, throwing technique, and stealth. After examining his characteristics, the boy realizes that everything he needs is displayed in this window. It resembles a game window and is straightforward to understand. However, while he's focused on the system window, he senses impending danger. Suddenly, Arashi lunges at him with his blast. He swiftly dodges the attack, causing the bully to use his fist, smashing through the stone floor where Aragi had been standing. Standing tall, the opponent creates a sizable dent in the ground beneath him. What's your deal? I've got the power of an explosion. What about you? Arashi taunts, eyeing his disliked classmate heatedly. He goes on to mockingly suggest that he can only make his eyes turn red. Most classmates rally behind the bully, joining in laughter at Aragi's seemingly worthless power. Nashami, looking at the boy, echoes the overall sentiments, finding his behavior consistently arrogant. Witnessing him face a setback even pleases her. Meanwhile, observing his classmates with detachment, Aragi can't fathom why they've grown so assured. Despite the information he's received, he can't precisely gauge the true utility of these abilities. These powers have been granted to them, yet their duration or retrieval remains uncertain. Regardless, Aragi acknowledges that he has plenty of ways to kill others, with a blank expression and soulless purple eyes. As Leonora approaches the hero candidates, she states that each of them now has their divine protection. She is of the view that initially controlling those blessings might be challenging, but eventually, they'll become the weapons that pierce the Demon King. After her remark, she claps her hands and suggests the guests from the other world must be tired so they will have some rest for the day. By evening, each hero candidate was assigned to a different room for rest. Aragi goes out the window, as he ponders to gather some intel before going to sleep. He silently sneaks out from the window of his room. He observed 2 guards patrolling within the fortress where the arrivals from the other world slept. One guard complains, "Patrolling late at night when it's impossible to see anything doesn't seem to make sense. The hero candidates were just summoned, right?" The other says, "But can they really protect themselves?" From what I've observed, they still seem like kids. The idea of them defeating the Demon King sounds unrealistic. Perhaps the saint knows something we're not aware of. Overhearing this conversation, Aragi, hiding behind a tree, finds it to be the third patrol recently, suspecting heightened security. Deciding to test his new power, he uses the blessing of appraisal on one of the guards. Realizing the guard only has a level 1 swordsmanship skill, he thought they might notice him using the system, but not everyone can use it here. He decides to observe the area more. He has learned most of the geography around the castle, its typical fortress town layout with guards at the main gate. The inner castle is highly guarded, so it is hard to sneak in. But still, he can leave it at that for today. While observing, he notices his 3 female classmates in a field. He overheard their conversation. One of them is of the view that they should not do it as the archbishop can get mad at them. Rina, while conjuring fire in her hand, says that they are only going to practice divine protection, and this is only for their good. While observing them, Aragi senses something. Suddenly, they hear strange sounds in the tall grass, and a strange monster appears. They are stressed and unable to understand what this creature is exactly, as they have never seen it before. The creature looks like a lizard. Aragi, who is hiding in the grass, uses his skill to check the ability of the creature. He found that it is a lizard species with 0 skills but has aggressive behavior towards humans. The lizard looks at the girls with an angry gaze and moves forward to attack them. 3 of the girls break out in cold sweats and run for their lives. Meanwhile, Aragi observes that there's a significant discrepancy in the creature's stats compared to Rin and the others. This creature seems to have superior abilities than the girls. Its aggressive nature and lack of hesitation to attack humans are concerning. Additionally, its mode of movement, fast on 4 legs but limited to a straight line, suggests a lack of intelligence. The tough skin raises doubts about the effectiveness of blades. He throws a knife at the creature, but it causes only shallow cuts. The girls are still running, and suddenly one of them, named Rin, staggers and falls. The creature is approaching. Just before its attack, Aragi hits its head with a knife and kills it. They are too afraid to notice who saved them and decide to go back. As he sees the girls are returning, Aragi ponders. It seems there was no particular incentive for him to intervene, but leaving them to fend for themselves didn't sit right with his conscience. He retrieves his knife, thinking, this incident makes it clear that there are monsters like this roaming around in this world and things won't be as straightforward as he thought. He then notices a suspicious silence and decides to leave the scene. Unknown to him, a cloaked figure emerges, expressing, I was disappointed by their apparent helplessness, but that one somehow feels familiar, almost smells like myself. In one of the castle's rooms, the corpse of a long-dead monster from the previous night with its head split open lies on the stone floor. The high school students are petrified at the sight. While the blonde guy examines the creature's body, Gaius informs the children that the monster had been loitering near the walls of the capital last night. Midu looks at the lizard corpse puzzled, and Arashi also hesitates. Upon hearing the archbishop's personal night, one of the classmates asks where the monster came from. Gaius explains that the Demon King manipulates the monsters, driving them into a frenzy, and causing their insatiable hunger for human flesh. This is what they will be up against. Addressing the blonde guy examining the corpse, the old man calls him steady and asks if he'd found out anything. The blonde mentions traces of sorcery, possibly the work of a mid-level demon or higher, scouting after hearing about hero candidates. Upon hearing the term sorcery, Aragi ponders if it is different from the miraculous power bestowed by Leonora. Midu asks Steady if he is saying that the monsters are being controlled by the demons. Steady agrees with his statement, explaining that powerful demons possess the ability to employ servitude spells, enabling them to control weaker monsters through a technique called slave sorcery, derived from evil mana. As the discussion continues, Gaius urges them to leave, but the blonde wants to learn more, feeling there is much left unexplained. The archbishop's knight drags him away, and Aragi ponders if the guy is a researcher and he can use him to gather more information. He contemplates the reason for the creature's appearance, which was being controlled by something else. While he observed the monster chasing the girls, he sensed the presence of a demon behind a tall rock, impressed by his judgment skill. But he could only observe him for less than a moment, thinking it could be very strong and could still be around them. Suddenly, he feels a strange aura behind him, a voice reassuring him that fear will only bring him imminent death. While Arashi informs his classmates about their goal, defeating the Demon King to return home. Most of them agree with him, as for the first time he is right. Midu is also of the view that fighting is the only choice they have. Meanwhile, some are hesitant, fearing the prospect of fighting monsters. Aragi observes his classmates' boldness, realizing that they've come to grasp that this isn't a game. Combat here means a battle to the death, just like in any world. It's crucial that they quickly understand the gravity of this reality. Miyako confronts the teacher, demanding answers about her involvement in controlling and manipulating the students. Ushimi finally speaks, feigning innocence, wondering if it was her. She points out the presence of many monsters within the school. Miyako remains unconvinced, stating that apart from her and the dismembered monster, there are no others in the school. The teacher smirks, realizing Miyako's lack of knowledge. Normally, directly noticing such anomalies unilaterally would be impossible. While there are distinctions, these beings generally stem from similar phenomena. Miyako's ability to detect them is limited to those who lack self-control or those who don't intend to be noticed. So, the teacher utilized it intentionally today, whereas Miyako seems to lack that particular skill. Whatever. Miyako does not care, she will just do what she's been doing. Get rid of everyone who comes in her way. This straightforward approach irritates Ushimi, who believes Miyako isn't the right fit for Aoi. According to her, he needs someone like her who can educate and look after him meticulously. She plans to demonstrate this to Miyako while enjoying time with Aoi and teaching him a wide array of things. She eagerly anticipates transforming him into something truly remarkable. She expresses her excitement, unable to fathom how delightful it will be. As she licks blood from her palm, she eagerly anticipates shaping Aoi's mind and body. She intends to be so essential to him that he'll rely on her for everything. Merely contemplating this possibility causes her to feel on the verge of losing herself. Miyako approaches the teacher, taken aback by her own words. She speaks as though she's human, discussing suitability and training, but Miyako couldn't care less about any of it. Her love for Aoi is all that matters to her. She bluntly repeats her disregard for the teacher's words. Ushimi, furious, believes Miyako is utterly oblivious. Doesn't she grasp what Ushimi truly is? For ages, people held her words and presence in reverence. Now, she intends to impart an ominous prediction upon Miyako, an omen of death, because she reveals herself to be a Ushiona. Yet, Miyako remains indifferent to her nature and intentions. As Miyako charges toward the fully transformed Ushimi, Miyako's sole wish is demise of her opponent. Just as their clash is imminent, the dismembered monster seizes Miyako from behind, affirming, "I warned you, I am an omen of death." This distraction provides Ushimi with an opening to strike, piercing through Miyako's abdomen. With a taunting remark about Miyako's assumption of defeating her, in her current form of a girl-like body, the whole class together with Gaius and Leonora goes to the forest. The knight tells the children that today is the day for practice, and that it will take place here. The forest is full of obstacles, so moving in a large group will not work as it will only get in the way. Therefore, the hero candidates will be divided into teams of 2 or 3. Upon learning about the team division, Nagase swiftly invites Shuji to join her team. Furthermore, the blonde girl standing beside her expresses her keen interest in joining their group. This interest stems from some of Arashi's friends knowing about his exceptional abilities in handling encountered monsters. Eagerly, they request to join his team. Intriguingly, even the head of the bullies doesn't object, permitting them to proceed as they wish. The classmates continue to divide among themselves, swiftly forming all the teams. While observing that every student has been allocated to different squads, Gaius prepares to commence the test. Suddenly, he notices an odd sight. 2 hero candidates remain, standing back to back, seemingly unwilling to form a team with anyone. He asks them about their problem. Closing her eyes in frustration, Kanzaki explains to Gaius that for some reason, no one has invited her to the group. It looks like it's her fault. At school, she interacts with everyone coldly and dislikes company. Hence, her classmates are afraid to approach her. Turning to the guy behind her, she remarks that she has no choice but to team up with him. Then, she asks Aragi if he's okay with it. The boy doesn't refuse and tells her to do as she pleases. Kanzaki Rin, a self-assured and cold-blooded girl, carries herself with pride, never allowing anyone to hinder her path. Sensing Aragi's gaze on her, she turns to meet his eyes. Perplexed by his stare, she questions why he's looking at her in such a manner. As he turns away, he tells her not to dwell on it and do the task. Meanwhile, the Archbishop outlines the challenge's conditions. The team that defeats the most monsters will earn a special reward. Following this, the gray-haired girl extends good luck to everyone and signals the start of the combat drill. A few minutes later, Aragi and Kanzaki silently and lazily walk alone through the forest, searching for the right monster. She suddenly speaks out, looking at him. "I'll tell you right away, my divine protection is better than any of our classmates, so you don't even have to do anything, just stay out of the way." Aragi does not contradict her and replies that in that case, he is now relying only on her. Fixing her hair, she remarks that this boy has no pride at all. Consequently, Aragi, observing her from behind, opts to assess this girl's fighting prowess initially. While following Kanzaki, Aragi detects 4 presences simultaneously around them. It appears the monsters have chosen to encircle them. Simultaneously, a small goblin wielding a club emerges from behind the bushes. Witnessing the monster ahead, Kanzaki halts abruptly, and Aragi, who is behind her, starts observing his classmates' actions closely. Without a moment's delay, the goblin lunges at the girl, swinging its wooden club. "Bow down, monster," Kanzaki shouts, extending her arm forward and activating her divine protection. The monster, caught off guard, is immediately pinned firmly to the ground, rendered incapable of movement, while Kanzaki stands upright. Aragi keenly observes her strength. "This is Kanzaki's blessing of domination, the power to compel others," he remarks, remaining still, cautioning her of the presence of additional monsters in the vicinity. Upon hearing this, Kanzaki promptly commands the opponent under her blessing to drop their weapons. Following the same approach, she instructs the goblin to place its hands behind its back. Glancing at the girl, Aragi wonders what's happening to her. She appears visibly fatigued. Kanzaki explains to him that prolonged use of the blessing is exceedingly draining. Recognizing the colossal energy drain, he pivots and suggests to Kanzaki that she swiftly eliminate this monster before others arrive. Gazing at the struggling goblin, the girl inquires about how to terminate it. "He's so similar to a human." Aragi tries to make her understand by saying, "What does that matter? He attacked us, remember? They're our enemies. Allowing them to live is senseless." Glaring coldly at Aragi, she slightly stammers as she agrees with him and assures him that she understands. Picking up a small rock from the ground, Aragi realizes that this girl won't make it even with her powers. She's still just a confused schoolgirl. Well, he thinks, the important thing is that she makes the right decision when the danger comes. As he calmly tosses the stone in his hand, the other monsters are already coming out of hiding, preparing to attack their enemies. The goblins begin to close in on the hero candidates, and Kanzaki, in turn, continues to keep her only opponent immobilized. Aragi immediately informs his classmate that the monsters are out. "Bow down!" The heavily tired girl shrieks again, applying her skill to the other monsters. At that very second, she starts to pant heavily. Continuing to look at all of this and doing nothing, Aragi asks her what she's going to do next. Kanzaki, on the other hand, tells him to shut up and asks him to help, not to stand still. However, he reminds her that she had told him to stay out of the way. After a bit of silence, Kanzaki realizes what her classmate wants her to do. "He wants me to kill those monsters." Realizing that she has no other choice, she waves her hand and orders the monsters to twist their own necks. Clutching their heads, the goblins begin to shake with fear. A moment later, all 4 opponents start doing what she asked for. It is the first time she has ever seen death with her own eyes. He is surprised, questioning if she could truly enforce such orders while looking at the goblin corpses. The girl confirms, noting that it might not work for everyone. The stronger the opponent, the less chance of success. To be honest, getting involved in real combat and facing dead bodies, that's not how I pictured it, Kanzaki remarks, pity in her gaze as she observes the dead monsters. To lessen her guilt, Aragi reminds her that these goblins attack them. Essentially, they're the enemy. The enemy must be eliminated, whether it's a monster or a human. Survival demands it, Kanzaki insists, asking how he can stay calm as he does not even have any powers. He admits he doesn't have much strength, but remaining calm is his strong point. Examining the corpse, he assures her classmate that it isn't frightening. Turning back to Kanzaki, he asks what she plans to do. Will they move on if she's afraid? After contemplating his words, she looks at the decapitated monsters thoughtfully. Firmly, she declares they aren't going back. She gestures for Aragi to follow, stating they're moving forward. He ponders. She's stubborn, but her psyche is stable. There's potential there. They wonder how the others are doing. Narumi, fleeing from an unknown creature, looks bewildered at the monster and seeks advice from the girl beside him. Hashimoto discourages the boy from asking, mentioning that she heard the monsters here are weak. Feeling hopeless, they decide to risk everything and employ their divine protection to confront the enemy. Narumi immediately uses his wind power, combining it with his classmate's telekinesis to lift a stone, casting a joint spell. The two launch a huge rock at the monster like a projectile from a cannon. As it flies into the creature, the boulder shatters into small pieces, but the monster remains unharmed due to its strong armored scales. Narumi finally realizes the predicament they're in, how to deal with such a monster. Recently, Kanzaki made a promise to herself to return to her world. Raised by her grandfather since birth, she feels an immense debt to him and is determined to bring him happiness. Her sudden disappearance surely brings him sadness. As she and her classmate, Aragi, forge ahead, he wonders how long she plans to walk, cautioning that they could easily become lost. She assures him that sticking to their current path will keep them on track. He warns her to not underestimate the forest. His unusual calmness infuriates her, and she shouts to shut his mouth. Upon her stare, he tells her not to stare at people like this. Disregarding his concerns, she suddenly hears Hashimoto's scream nearby. Reacting swiftly, they hasten to assist, discovering Hashimoto in a battered condition, barely managing to hold on. Narumi moves quickly to help her, but their efforts are interrupted by the monster's furious roar. Hashimoto asks him to run away to save himself. Just as the bear prepares to attack, a commanding voice halts it. Kanzaki stops the monster using her control blessing. It is difficult for her to hold this monster for a long time. Aragi notices that her power has varying effects on different adversaries. Concerned about Hashimoto's state, he asks Narumi about her. He acknowledges her severe injuries but assures him that she's still breathing. Urging Narumi to take Hashimoto and escape, Aragi stresses the critical need for immediate action. However, Narumi declines to leave the battle, expressing gratitude to their saviors before departing with Hashimoto. Aragi advises him to seek help from Midu and Leonora if finds them on the way. Now alone with the armored mutant bear, he assesses the danger. He uses his judgment skill to see the stats window and notes the monster's high stats, particularly its formidable defense and tough fur. Aragi wonders that his attacks cannot damage it, and he also does not know about its species. Meanwhile, Kanzaki informs him that she can no longer be able to control the monster. He tells her it's time for them to run as she has bought enough time. He acts swiftly, using a smoke grenade to create cover and escape with Kanzaki. However, she has exhausted herself, collapsing, unable to move further. Promptly understanding their situation, Aragi devises a strategy. He uses the smoke grenade to divert attention, enabling their getaway. While they conceal themselves behind a tree, Kanzaki queries him about the smoke bomb. He elaborates, mentioning he crafted it during practice sessions, although the truth is that he consistently carries weaponry but uses it sparingly. He had some equipment with him before he got summoned. This was basic equipment for an assassin. She experiences regret for relying on assistance, yet Aragi waves off her apology, recommending a simple thank you instead. As she awkwardly expresses gratitude, he teases about her courtesy being quite appealing. Cautioning her to remain silent because of the nearby threat, he analyzes the scenario. They watch the bear, which unexpectedly settles down, sensing impending danger. A poised figure emerges, Midu, activating his power, readies himself for a high-stakes confrontation with the monster. The armored mutant bear pivoted abruptly, acknowledging its opponent. "You're the one who injured Narumi and Hashimoto." "I'm your opponent," he declares as he emerges from behind the trees, locking eyes with the creature. In that instant, the class headman invokes his blessing, the sword that protects against evil. A tense confrontation loomed between a formidable monster and the class's most skilled hero, a student who had crossed over from another world. A poised figure emerges, Midu, activating his power, readies himself for a high-stakes confrontation with the monster. The armored mutant bear pivoted abruptly, acknowledging its opponent. Midu moves a step forward, drawing his blade behind his back, preparing to strike a forceful blow at the monster. In response, the mutant bear lunges forward with a deafening roar. Effortlessly dodging the enemy's attack, the class leader firmly grips the sword's handle with both hands, swiftly countering. The sharp blade of the evil defending sword cuts through the bear's tough skin, but the inflicted wound isn't as deep as expected. The creature appears far more resilient than initially presumed. Suddenly, Rina extends her arm and, using her pyrokinesis, unleashes a huge fireball that engulfs the armored mutant bear, setting its tough skin ablaze. Confidence beams from Rina as she remarks on her anticipated outcome. Stepping back to a safe distance, she earns praise from the class leader before preparing to launch another attack. However, much to everyone's surprise, the monster swiftly recovers from the powerful fire attack, glaring in anger at its adversaries. Witnessing the bear's resistance, Rina expresses her concern and questions how the creature manages to withstand the assault. Midu, without averting his gaze from the opponent, reassures her and notes that her attack has its effect. Encouraging their approach, they collaborate to continue the assault, refusing to give the bear any respite. In the depths of the forest, a mysterious onlooker observes the scene, an expert assassin named Demon Delphis. Impressed by their resilience and the development of their rivals, the bear cannot compete with them now, especially Midu. Delphis contemplates that this was supposed to be a scouting mission, but due to different circumstances, he changes his plans, intending to eliminate them. Meanwhile, Midu continues his assault on the bear, delivering slashing blows that finally weaken the monster. Midu, looking at the exhausted enemy whose body is completely covered in wounds and bleeding, shouts, "Finish him!" Delphis whispers, "Now take that lesson with you to the next world, boy. Things are different here. After killing an opponent, you can never relax." As soon as the demon Delphis vocalized this, he felt something strange. Someone crept up behind him and placed a knife blade to his throat. It turns out to be Aragi, who had stealthily approached unnoticed. He whispers in his ears, "My parents taught me well, that the time you make the biggest mistake is when you kill your enemies." Swiftly seizing an opportunity, Aragi uses his skill to disarm Delphis, preventing an attack. The demon's knife falls to the ground, embedding into the earth. Recognizing the futility of his position, Delphis raises his hands, pledging to recall the advice from Aragi. He couldn't believe a mere kid had caught him off guard, but surrender wouldn't be easy for him. As he contemplates an escape, Aragi acts swiftly, slashing the demon's knees in one motion. Delphis cries out in pain, astonished by the boy's skill with the blade. Aragi, with his blade at Delphis's throat, cautioned him not to scream too loudly as he wouldn't want the others noticing him. He offers to release him in exchange for answers to a few questions. Bitterly, Delphis demands to know who Aragi is. "A shadow from another world," he confidently explained. He remembers the eerie presence he felt, revealing that they were being followed and that he had used Midu as bait from the start to lure him to them. Delphis realizes that he noticed him from the start. Pressing a painful point on Delphi's back with his foot, Aragi emphasizes the importance of divulging information as a new inhabitant of their world, and urging him to spit out everything about demons. Delphi, in his last breath, says, "You think I will talk?" and clenches his jaw forcefully, causing an audible crunch. Aragi warns him by placing his foot on his throat that he will go easy on him if he tells him what he wants. But Delphi choked and began spitting blood, saying, "Don't underestimate me, boy." He died without revealing anything. Aragi, noticing a suicide poison in Delphi's mouth, felt frustrated with their thorough yet troubling encounter. Suddenly, a system beep alerts him that someone is nearby. Trembling with fear, Kanzaki inquired if the person was dead. Annoyed, Aragi looks surprised by turning his attention back to the frightened girl, who had witnessed Delphi's fall. Aragi asks her how much she has seen. Not taking his wary gaze off her, the frightened girl says she had seen very little, only how the man had fallen. He explains that the dead man was the assassin of the Demon King's army, and the armored bear was his puppet. The monster that attacked Nagase and her friends was also his work. After listening, Kanzaki asks if the demons are trying to kill them. He confirms, noting it is obvious that the Demon King's army would send someone to kill the hero candidates. She agrees, remarking that she has been too naive. Kanzaki then asks how he noticed the Demon King's assassin, being the only one who recognizes him. Looking at his classmate, the boy decides to disclose everything. "In our home world, I belong to an assassin family who do contract killings," he explains, his gaze fixed on the corpse beneath his feet. Tensely, Kanzaki asks about the nature of these contract killings, realizing it doesn't sound plausible. He leaves it to her discretion whether to believe him or not, yet emphasizes the undeniable fact of the corpse's presence. Sadly, Aragi requests her to keep what she witnessed that day to herself. The class is already shaken due to Hashimoto's injury. Gazing at him with intrigue, she promises to keep quiet. She notes that the boy is surprisingly kind, wondering aloud why he pays such close attention to his classmates' feelings. Removing his hood, Aragi explains that unlike himself, the other classmates are not used to fighting. However, he refrains from mentioning to his partner that he purposefully acts friendly to earn Kanzaki's trust. He anticipates that her blessing of domination could prove useful for him in the future. Upon their return, all the classmates gather around the badly injured Hashimoto. Hano Shiori, student number 34, uses her ordinary healing blessing to heal Hashimoto's wounds and bruises in seconds. The classmates watch with genuine amazement. Concerned, Narumi asks if his partner will be okay. After hearing that she will be completely healthy in an hour, he exhales with relief. He remarks that Shuji is amazing as that monster was really strong. The class headman agrees but insists that defeating the monster with Rina and others wasn't difficult. Aragi leans against a nearby tree, listening with closed eyes. Feeling a sensation of being watched, he asks Kanzaki why she's looking at him. She turns away proudly and tells him not to take it personally. At that moment, the voice of the Archbishop interrupts them, stating that apparently, everyone has already returned. Furiously, Narumi asks where they had been. Guise explains they weren't far from the forest, keeping an eye on the hero candidates. Perplexed, Narumi asks why he hadn't helped at the most dangerous moment. The old man replies that it wouldn't be a workout if he helped them every time. Midu confronts Mr. Gaius, asking why he had just stood by and watched when Hashimoto was in danger of dying. He gravely states that in actual battle, anyone's life is in danger of death, and this is the kind of battle that awaits them, so they shouldn't whine about feeble complaints. Midu disagrees, feeling they've been tricked as the knights had mentioned the forest only housed weak monsters. Leonora explains it's likely the work of a demon assassin. Armored bears have never been in this forest and are being used by demons to assess the candidate's strength. And he might have still hidden himself nearby. She suggests strengthening security to enhance their defenses. She instructed on intensifying training to avoid being killed like insects. Some express disbelief that it could become harder as they're already pushing themselves to the limit, realizing they could truly be killed at any moment. Mida shouts that it's ridiculous, it's their first real fight, and they're already shaken. The Archbishop replies indifferently, stating even though this is absurd they'll have to go through with it, or they'll die. The class leader looks dumbfoundedly at the gray-haired girl. An annoyed Arashi says it's already too much. They were summoned to this world and are now being given orders. An aggravated Gaius suddenly appears in front of him, stating, "I'll tell you now so there's no misunderstanding. You're all just pawns of Mr. Leonora. Don't think you have the right to disobey her." Arashi burns in anger and tries to attack the knight. Just then Midu stops him and asks him to calm down. Arashi questions Midu about his unnerving calmness. Midu insists that they obey as it's their country and defying them would make them enemies, an unwinnable risk. Gaius admires Midu's grasp of the situation, assuring they won't do anything frightening as they consider the candidates important. Meanwhile, Arashi readies to attack Gaius, charging with fury. He unleashes a destructive blast attack, hurling a fireball at him. Angered, Gaius not only halts the attack but retaliates fiercely, while Arashi is left unconscious on the ground. He declares, "This is the extent of your power. Things will get tougher from now on. Prepare yourselves." With that, he departs with Leonora, leaving the hero candidates seething with rage. Arashi, furious, vows to exact revenge on the knight. The day after the military drills conclude, Steady, the monster researcher under Leonora-sama's orders, takes charge of the day's training. He inquires about the previous day's injuries and Hashimoto reassures everyone of her recovery thanks to Shiori-chan's healing. She then points toward Arashi, saying, "That idiot is also fine." Steady admired the presence of someone possessing a healing-type divine protection among them. He proceeds to explain that the day's training will involve fighting monsters within his research facility. Midu expresses concern about the presence of monsters inside the building, and Steady, adjusting his glasses, suggests showing rather than explaining. Inside the facility, goblins, lizardvils, and even large bears await them. He reveals that these monsters are raised for his experiments. Leonora adds cheerfully that Steady's laboratory is ideal for soldier training. He expresses his excitement at gathering combat data from the monsters. He announces the start of drill. It starts with an encounter between Rina and a bear monster. Observing from a window, Aragi notices the surprising calmness among everyone despite the sudden demand to fight. He acknowledges the impact of the previous day's experience yet senses lingering fear. Amidst the training, Rina falls after being struck by a monster. Midu expresses concern, stating the monster is too strong for her. However, Steady asserts that, with divine protections, they shouldn't lose to a monster of that level, much to Rina's frustration. He also emphasizes the importance of willpower in battle, while Rina expresses her annoyance and launches a fire attack. Midu questions the significance of fear and hesitation in their performance, to which Steady replies that increasing the level of their divine protection can yield new derivatives and skills. Suddenly Midu feels someone standing behind him. He stands up and sees Aragi standing behind him. He asks him if there is something wrong. Aragi employs his skill, and as one of his eyes takes on a crimson hue, the other, retaining its usual color, calmly informs him of an enhanced level of divine protection. He adds that, based on his judgment, he seems to have acquired a new divine protection. He sees that Mida's skills include Sword of Evil Crushing Divine Protection at level 2, Monster Kamikaze Attack Divine Protection at level 1, and Swordsmanship at level 4. Midu, intrigued, asks Steady if he could give it a try. Steady readily agrees, stating that these combat drills are precisely for such purposes. Midu steps into the battleground and taunts the monster, questioning its fear. He declares his lack of mercy and launches into a powerful assault. His strikes sever one arm of the monster, causing it to roar in agony. With the second blow, he decapitates the creature, slamming its head brutally onto the ground. The display of power astonishes everyone present. Aragi contemplates that at this level, he should no longer encounter difficulty dealing with an armored bear's defenses. He ponders, "I'm curious if my judgment has progressed, possibly triggering a new divine protection within me." Taking another look around, it seems there's someone else who's acquired a new divine protection. Observing Arashi's abilities, Destructive Blast Divine Protection, landmine divine protection at level 1, classic martial arts at level 3. He realizes it's not his place to inform him. Contemplating, it strikes him that they might be able to expand the abilities of their divine protection. As he can't just rely on his old methods in this world, he needs to improve too. As night falls, Arashi sits with his friend, engrossed in thought. One of his friends expresses surprise, questioning Arashi's seriousness. He reveals his plan to them. First, he intends to eliminate Guise, then he intends to capture Leonora to extract from her the means to return to their world. Someone remarks, "So that means we're departing from this wretched world. And if we eliminate Leonora, we won't have to fret about being summoned again." Seeking support, he implores Narumi. "Work alongside me, Narumi. You're also tired of their demeanor, aren't you?" he inquires. "Do you believe we can emerge victorious?" Arashi responds that collaborating might enhance our odds. Narumi acknowledges, "I understand it's about returning to our world, but taking lives is still unethical." However, recalling what transpired with Hashimoto, he ultimately agrees. The following day marks another session of training. Midu devoted himself to perfecting his swordsmanship skills. Aragi, who was observing him from a distance, walks towards him and praises Midu's dedication, recognizing his hard work. Responding modestly, he admits, "I'm still lacking, so I must become stronger." In an attempt to encourage him, Aragi remarks, "I believe you could surpass the abilities of more than half the knights in this country already." However, Midu remains resolute, expressing, "That's insufficient." He is still unable to surpass Gaius-san. He needs overwhelming strength. Enough to protect everyone, regardless of the circumstances. In their conversation, Aragi directly questions Midu regarding his thoughts on Leonora and Gaius. He shares his understanding, stating, he is aware they intend to use them as pawns in their conflicts. Moreover, he believes their assurance of not harming them if they comply is truthful. Aragi, seeking clarity, inquires, "So, are you willing to risk your life and continue fighting until the defeat of the Demon King?" Midu affirms with determination, "Absolutely. I've already committed to it. However, I see it as my responsibility alone. I aim to become the hero of this nation and vanquish the Demon King." He further emphasized, "To ensure everyone else's safety, I'll attempt negotiations and secure their well-being in return." As Aragi praises Mida's admirable aspirations, he voices a cautious concern, saying, "Your plan is admirable." He further asks if he believes that Leonora will agree to it. Midu responds resolutely, as he is wielding his sword to ensure her acceptance. Their discussion is interrupted as Leonora arrives at the training grounds accompanied by her knight, while the candidates are engaged in their practice. Observing their dedication, she acknowledged their efforts, remarking, "They all seem dedicated to their training once again today." She informs Steady about his responsibility, affirming that he'll be in charge of the hero candidates while they're away. Steady, enthusiastic about the task, assured that she wouldn't be disappointed. Kanzaki, perplexed, questions, "While you're away, are you going somewhere?" Leonora calmly discloses their brief absence, that they will be away for a few days. That's why she asks Steady to watch over all of them for her in the meantime. She excuses them all, and with that, they bid goodbye and depart. During their carriage journey, Gaius expressed concern to her, asking if it was a good idea to leave them all on their own. Leonora, curious about his doubts, inquires, "What makes you say that?" Gaius, with a serious expression, urged her to stop being naive, mentioning Arashi's stirring actions, suspecting it as a potential rebellion against them. Leonora concurs, acknowledging the possibility of a rebellion, and decides to observe the situation from a distance. Gaius, contemplating their status as hero candidates, acknowledges their developmental stage but entertains the notion of a possible uprising, to which Leonora confidently states, "That won't happen. Besides, they cannot beat her, never." He agrees but suggests utilizing the situation as an opportunity. The fake smile on her face disappears as she considers the establishment of a hierarchy to quell any rebellion and dismantle their fangs once and for all. Despite noticing other suspicious activities, she opts to maintain a feigned smile as she decides to leave them be for the time being. At night, Aragi ventured into the forest on a hunt for monsters, a routine he'd grown accustomed to. His expertise manifested swiftly as he dispatched a lizard val and a goblin, a task taking him a few seconds. Pondering his progress, he reflected, so it takes me 13 seconds to kill a monster of this level. Activating his judgment and acknowledging his divine protection at level 1, he speculates that it might have been a result of his encounter with the demon assassin. However, his newfound ability puzzled him. He grappled with the question of how to effectively employ this power. As he stood in the forest, another monster lunged towards him. To his surprise, it wasn't an ordinary creature, it was an ogre. Swiftly, Aragi readied his blades, launching an attack with full force. Yet, to his dismay, his blades failed to penetrate the ogre's tough hide. Puzzled but undeterred, he pondered his next move, realizing that this could be the opportune moment to test his new skill. Acting quickly, Aragi activated his judgment skill, employing weak point detection. To his surprise, the skill illuminates a vulnerable spot on the ogre's skin. He aimed his attack at that weak point, and it proved effective, inflicting harm upon the ogre. Reflecting on his newfound skill, he acknowledges its usefulness but understands its limitations, recognizing the need to further enhance his abilities to survive and thrive in this challenging world. Determined, he resolved to become even stronger. As the encounter with the ogre concluded, a group of goblins began to fiercely eye Aragi, preparing to attack. Swiftly, he activated his weak point detection window, revealing that the goblins had served as their weak points. Reacting swiftly, he launches an assault with his knives, swiftly eliminating the goblins in an instant. Contemplating the result, he concluded, "I guess it's natural that their weak points are their brain and heart. So, this skill isn't that useful against normal monsters. I need a bigger test subject. I should probably find a different monster." Amidst this reflection, a sudden sense of something unusual catches Aragi's attention. Startled by the presence of human footsteps, he turned to find Kanzaki. Surprised and a little shocked, she calls out to him, "Shinju. Kun Aragi?" Turning to face her, he inquires about her presence at such a late hour. Kanzaki explained, "I came to look for you since you weren't in the dorms. I thought you might be here, so I came here and here you are." Concerned about her safety, he warns her about the dangers of the forest at night, advising her to leave immediately. Surprised by his caution, Kanzaki's eyes widened, and she retorted, "That should be my line, you know?" Aragi calmly points out that he is used to the night, but she is different. Fighting monsters at night isn't the same as during the day. Reacting with frustration, she snaps, "What is he doing here anyway?" Aragi discloses his purpose and that he is testing out his new divine protection. Perplexed, she echoes his words in surprise. He recalled Steady's discussion about leveling up divine protections. Curious about the details, she asks about the nature of his new divine protection. However, Aragi, instead of providing an answer, questions her intentions. "Why would I tell you?" Expressing genuine concern, Kanzaki angrily admits that she came here because she was worried about his well-being. Surprised by her statement, he questions her. Why was she concerned about him? Angrily, she clarifies that it was just a figure of speech. Despite her insistence on staying with him, Aragi urges her to return, intending to continue his testing alone. However, Kanzaki's attention suddenly shifts, noticing something unusual. "Hey, what's with that smoke?" she exclaims, diverting their conversation momentarily. In the distance, plumes of smoke billowed into the sky, drawing attention to the castle building engulfed in flames. Chaos ensued as goblins and lizard val attacked the hero candidates, instilling fear in everyone present. Among the fray were Narumi and Hashimoto. Amidst the turmoil, a girl lay on the ground, petrified, while an ogre menacingly prepared to strike her. Just in the nick of time, Midu arrived, brandishing his sword, and swiftly intervened, rescuing the frightened girl. Though physically unharmed, she remained shaken. Facing a horde of goblins advancing toward them, Midu expressed frustration, realizing the imminent danger. "Rina, preparing her fireballs in response to the threat, voiced her exasperation, questioning the sudden attack by these creatures. Midou, focused on the urgency of the situation, urged Rina to prioritize action over complaints, emphasizing the need to confront the incoming threat promptly. Meanwhile, Kenzaki and Aragi rushed towards the building, realizing the severity of the situation as they witnessed their dorm ablaze. Observing the chaotic scene, they deduced that the others were also engaged in battles against the monstrous assailants. Upon seeing them at the chaotic scene, Narumi expressed relief upon seeing Aragi and Kanzaki safe and sound. Aragi, curious about the situation, inquires about the sudden chaos that had unfolded. Narumi, equally bewildered, recounts how he had awakened due to the fire, finding himself amidst a horde of monsters. Aragi, using his judgment to piece together the situation, concludes that a human must have caused the incident and suggests locating the mastermind responsible for the havoc. Unexpectedly, a voice interjects, acknowledging Aragi's good judgment, startling both Aragi and Narumi. It turned out to be Steady, much to their surprise. Aragi questions him, suspecting that the monsters responsible for the chaos were from his laboratory. Steady, with a nonchalant demeanor, confirms it, referring to the monsters as his cute little guinea pigs. He admits to enhancing them with medicine as they were initially weak and unfit for use. This revelation triggers anger in Aragi, who demands to know Steady's motives behind attacking the hero candidates. He pressed for an explanation, questioning how killing the hero candidates would benefit him. In response, Steady calmly informed them that it was an order from higher authorities, stating that he was mandated to eliminate the hero candidates, even if it meant sacrificing his current position. Despite holding no personal grudge against them, Steady expressed regret, indicating that he had no choice but to confront and potentially kill them. In a mix of anger and shock, Kanzaki couldn't contain her emotions upon hearing Steady's confession about receiving orders from above. She hastily speculated if Leonora was behind the orders, but Steady's response only deepened their astonishment. He outright dismisses any involvement from Leonora, denying the connection and informing them of the orders directly to the Demon King himself. Narumi's voice thunders with rage as he accuses Steady of being a spy for the Demon King, seeking affirmation about his treacherous allegiance. Unfazed, Steady confirms Narumi's accusation, admitting to being aligned with the Demon King's camp. He reveals his ambitions, aiming to perform the task at hand with utmost efficiency to secure a position as a researcher within the Demon King's ranks. Aragi, his emotions flaring, condemned Steady's actions, expressing deep disappointment at the researcher's descent into darkness. He questions the researcher's priorities, questioning if his sole concern had become the pursuit of monster research. Aragi, with a hint of sorrow in his tone, expresses regret that humanity couldn't fully grasp the mysterious nature of creatures classified as